that the genome itself is more than just physical bits of DNA and their chemistry. It's energetic patterns, it's information patterns, and that's where you get to the cutting edge of biology. Biology now is, people who are on the cutting edge of research in biology are thinking of themselves as information system analysts, because what we've discovered is it's the information that shapes the evolution of bacteria, fruit flies, caterpillars to butterflies, etc.
Of other organisms, is transmigration of the soul part of this process? Do animals reincarnate?
Well, I would say that all living organisms reincarnate in the sense that we're talking about here. The term transmigration, in the traditional use of that term several thousand years ago, and its original connotation was that humans could go from one species to the other, back and forth. I don't think that's necessarily the case that we're discovering at this point in time. I think that it's within a species, it's species consciousness, but it's speculative. But I think that we have evidence that learning and adaptation, which takes part in one generation of insects and animals, can be perceived in the next generation, just as we see in humans. For example, let's take great musician Mozart. Many of us think there was another person who is likely the reincarnation, a guy named Korngold, who is a very well-known later composer and musician, and people who look at their lives see...
Isn't his name Wolfgang also?
His middle name is Wolfgang also, that's right, interestingly enough. And there was no conscious effort, as far as we know, to make that connection, because the kid was named before they even knew he was a musician. But you see this, and I worked with a case of Paul Gauguin, a famous painter, and his likely reincarnation in this lifetime, Peter Teekamp, and you see progress in the learning. So when we look at animals and we look at insects, we can see the same progress. Scientists are able to teach caterpillars to react to a certain stimulus, and then when all of that turns into soup and then becomes a butterfly, the butterfly will react to the same stimulus as the caterpillar was taught. So anyhow, it's still very speculative, but I think that there's some basis in evidence that it's a natural part of the living order.
So even plants have to have some kind of
maybe
connection. Like I know there's these little red berries that you see alongside the road and everything. There's only a couple of birds that can even chew them up to where the seeds inside, because normally they'll drop the seeds and spread it around. That's why it's everywhere, and it connects to a lot of different kind of plants. But even the birds that totally chew it up till it's disintegrated, digest it, it reassembles and still grows.
That's right. So this is where biology comes in, with the notion that what you have are patterns. And just before actually the book came out, I read research about physicists looking in space using our space station. They observe space dust in a vacuum reconforming itself, refiguring itself in certain patterns, which one of those patterns happened to be the helix. The same as our DNA helix. Another study that was done was taking plasma, just simply plasma gases, stirring them up and allegedly breaking up all the patterns that were there. They reformed. So what this research in physics and biology suggests is that the idea, this goes back to Plato, you remember he said the idea is inside everything, and it's the ideal. It's the perfect pattern. Well, people are discovering that that seems to be the case. And what I would suggest is that what we've thought of as reincarnation is the effect of that process. And we have a lot of cases that I don't think can be explained any other way. I mean, you're talking about knowledge, habits, physical patterns, ways of thinking, ways of behaving, all of these things we've talked about. To say that this person matches so perfectly that person 100 years ago without hypothesizing some kind of connection.
Right.
Which is not genetic.
Got to be a cause and effect there.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a cause and effect, and you have to hypothesize a mechanism in the middle somewhere. And other ideas of, you know, there's some, like, people are just tapping into memories of dead people, you know.
Yeah.
Or people are tapping into ideas that are out in the collective unconscious or the Akashic records.
Right.
Or maybe some spirit invaded this person and is the spirit of that person. Well,
they're possessed by the dead person, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, those are even more speculative, it seems to me, because they require some third-party action, whereas the natural process of reincarnation doesn't require a third-party hypothesis, which is even more difficult to prove. I think it's easier to prove that there's some sort of natural mechanism involved.
Right.
Or you can't prove it, but it's
now, Paul, your book is called The Soul Genome, subheading Science and Reincarnation.
That's right.
And so you're basically reconciling reincarnation with a scientific theory of how it works. Now, is this available on Amazon.com?
Oh, yeah. It's Amazon.com.
And your website is www.vonward.com.
Right.
And if people want to contact you by email, it is paul@vonward.com.
Very easy.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Okay.
If you just remember Paul Von Ward and manipulate it, you can communicate either way.
And we're gonna do a follow-up show here in the near future about your book, Gods, Genes, and Consciousness, where we're going to discuss advanced beings and visitations from possibly some of those other people out there that we may be reincarnating from.
Well, the advanced beings include, you know, possible other beings, also what we call angels and gods and other ethereal beings. So it's a rich area for discussion.
Well, Paul, it's been a pleasure to have you on Mystery Us. Thank you for being our guest.
It's a pleasure being with you.
Enjoyed it.